So, the rumours are true, mate. I only use these two lenses. Anyway, hold up. Sorry, it gets a little bit intense at times when I start editing music and that, but let's bring it back. What's going on, you lot? I hope you're all sweet. Yeah, so these are the only two lenses that I ever bloody use. And these two are the Canon 10-18 4.5. It's a crop lens, and everyone's like, why the hell do you use a crop lens on a full frame camera? And I'll get into that. And also the Canon 50mm 1.8, and they just so happen to be two of the cheapest lenses on planet Earth, which is always handy when you think about it. Now, there's a multiple of reasons why I use only these two lenses, and it's mainly because they give me a variation of focal ranges that allow me to tell my story exactly how I want to tell it. They allow me to get beautiful establishing shots that show a location, establish where we are in the scene, and it also allows us to get really close and tight up and intimate with our subjects so that we can show off some emotion. So I feel like people massively overthink their filmmaking equipment a lot of the times, and they don't really think about the story they're trying to tell. And for me, limited by these two lenses allows me to really strain and push my creative element when I'm trying to tell a story. When I'm limited to two different focal lengths, it really makes me think about what I'm trying to say in each particular shot, so I can quickly make a decision, right, do I want to go on a slightly tighter 50mm, or do I want to go wide, show the landscape, show some environment in there to help tell that story? So first up, let's talk about the Canon 10-18 4.5. It is probably the cheapest wide-angle lens that you're going to find on the market, which is good for me. Now, it certainly isn't the sharpest lens in the world, but I really am not that bothered about sharpness. This lens is super lightweight. It's made of plastic. It ain't made of metal. The build quality is absolutely horrendous. But I've taken this lens here, there, and everywhere around the world. I've chucked it about. It's been dropped in the sand. It's been taken on boats. And I tell you what, mate, I just do not care if I break this thing, because it only cost me 170 quid back like 4 years ago, and it's still going strong, mate. Now, obviously, I've got the focal range anywhere between 10 and 18mm. Mainly, I'm at 10mm, but sometimes when I want to go in a little bit tighter, just so it doesn't completely distort the edges, I'll go in at about 18mm. Now, a situation where I'd use the 10 to 18mm is when I'm trying to show off a landscape or establish a scene. Using a wide angle really allows you to show the audience so much that's in the frame. You can also show the foreground. I like to do this when I'm introducing scenes. I'll usually whack on the 10-18, push into a scene, establish where we are, maybe establish the character, but mainly it's just about showing the audience what this film or video is about. I also use it to show scale, so when I want to make something look really, really big, I'll throw on the 10-18, get nice and close to it, and it will actually exaggerate the size of whatever I'm shooting. Now, the 10-18 definitely has some limitations. It only goes down to 4.5 on the old aperture, mate, and let's be honest, that ain't great in low light. But the reason I'm happy to use the 4.5 is because I'm shooting on the A7S Mark II. That is incredible in low light, that camera. So I can literally whack the ISO all the way up to like 8, maybe even 10,000, and it ain't a problem, mate, at 4.5 with this lens. Hold your horses, James. You're using Canon lenses on a Sony camera. How does that work? Well, I'm using the Comlight adapter. Do I think it's good? Absolutely not. The option for autofocus is absolutely horrendous. No chance of using the autofocus. It does not work at all. But it doesn't bother me at all because I only ever shoot in manual focus. So yeah, that kind of works. Now the 10 to 18 is so wide, it's definitely not the kind of lens that you're going to want to show off some emotion or show some facial expressions with this lens, because mate, your subjects are going to look ugly as fuck. So that is where the 50mm 1.8 comes in. The 50mm 1.8 is my go-to lens when I'm trying to show off some emotion, when I'm trying to introduce a character into my scene and really show the audience who they are or how they're feeling at that particular time. Going in nice and tight on someone's face tells the audience a little bit more about them. It shows them how they're feeling. We can see their emotions, their facial expressions, and any reaction that they essentially have. Another good thing about this lens is it's super fast, so it goes all the way down to 1.8. Great in low light, great for a bit of bokeh in the background, but a lot of the times, you probably notice in my films, I don't really shoot at 1.8 that much. The only time I really do shoot at 1.8 is if I'm doing an interview or I actually want to isolate the subject or the character in the frame to kind of put more emphasis on them and not so much on the background. Now, another reason I'd use the 50mm 1.8 is to show off some details. So if I ever want to focus on some certain details in a scene, I can throw on the 50mm 1.8, throw out the background so it's out of focus, and really allow the audience to focus on the small little details that I'm highlighting in the frame. Using a slightly tighter lens allows you to kind of crush the space in between your foreground and your background. So when I've got a subject in the foreground, but I also have some emphasis on the background, I'll probably use the 50mm 1.8 because it allows us to crush that space in between the foreground and the background and allow us to establish some kind of connection between the subject and their environment. Now, something that's really important to me is having like an unspoken relationship with the subject that you're filming. Now, if you're out doing travel vlogs, you really want to capture emotion on the locals' faces. Now, if you've got small, light and accessible gear, you are going to have a much better chance of getting in close and feel non-intrusive on your subjects. That is going to allow them to feel much more relaxed and allow you to get a much better and authentic reaction from them. If you turned up with a big cinema camera with a bloody Steadicam on it, mate, they're probably going to go, hold your horses, mate, what is going on here? Now, they're clearly not going to give you that authentic look if you turn up doing that. That is a massive reason why I like to use these two tiny, lightweight lenses. It doesn't make anyone feel intruded or like I'm actually affecting their personal space. Anyway, people, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I think that might have cleared up a few questions around why I only use these two lenses. Bang a comment in the comment section as to what lenses you are using and why you're using them, mate, because I want to know what you lot are using. Like, this is only me. Like, I want to know about you. And finally, before I check out, I do want to again emphasize the impact on story. Do not worry about having the most expensive, biggest, sharpest lenses in the world. You do not need them, mate. Go out there, pick your focal ranges to tell your story, not based on how sharp or how shallow your depth of field can be. And I promise you, you will become a better filmmaker than if you was worrying about your gear 100% of the time. Anyway, people, peace.